I watched my husband sign our marriage certificate with the coldest eyes I'd ever seen. He didn't even look at me. 3 months later, that same man was begging me not to leave. What changed? Not him at first, but how I played a game he never expected. If you've ever felt invisible to someone who should see you, this story will show you the power of knowing your worth. Stay until the end because the twist will change how you see relationships forever. Hit that subscribe button, you won't regret it. My name is Naomi Patterson, and I never imagined I'd become someone's wife through what was essentially a business arrangement. I'm a pharmaceutical research scientist. I spent years in labs working on drug formulations that could help people with chronic pain. My life was my work, my small circle of friends, and my Sunday calls with my mom back in Chicago. I wasn't looking for a husband, and I certainly wasn't looking for Daniel Whitmore. Daniel came from the kind of wealth that doesn't announce itself, it just exists. His family owned one of the largest real estate and hospitality empires on the East Coast: hotels, luxury resorts, commercial properties in every major city. And Daniel himself? He was 34, devastatingly handsome in that cold, calculated way, and emotionally unavailable in a way that seemed almost intentional. The arrangement came about through my late mentor, Dr. Helen Cartwright, who'd worked with the Whitmore Foundation. Before she passed, she'd mentioned me to Daniel's mother, Victoria, not as a potential wife, just as a promising scientist. But Victoria saw opportunities everywhere, and when her father-in-law's will created a problem, she saw me as a solution. The will was brutal. Daniel had to be married by his 35th birthday, or he'd lose his controlling shares in the family empire. He had 6 months when Victoria approached me, and I had a research lab that was hemorrhaging funding after our primary investor pulled out. Victoria was direct. My son needs a wife. You need resources to continue your work. This could be mutually beneficial. She explained that Daniel had no interest in a traditional marriage, but appearances mattered. I'd attend events, play the role at family gatherings, and in return, my research would be fully funded for 5 years. I thought about the patients who could benefit from my research. I thought about my team who were about to lose their jobs. And I thought about how I'd spent 28 years building a life that didn't revolve around finding a man to complete me. Maybe I could maintain that same independence within this arrangement. When I met Daniel, he shook my hand like I was a potential business partner. "I want to be clear that I am not looking for a traditional marriage," he said. "We'll maintain separate lives. I'll need you for public appearances and family events. Beyond that, you're free to do as you please." I matched his energy, nodded professionally, and agreed. The wedding was 3 weeks later. Small, formal, held at his family's estate. I wore a simple ivory dress. Daniel wore a Tom Ford suit and looked at his watch twice during the ceremony. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Daniel gave me the briefest, most impersonal kiss I'd ever experienced. His sister Rebecca whispered, "Well, that was romantic," with enough sarcasm to cut glass. I moved into his penthouse the next day. He showed me to a guest bedroom and said, "I travel frequently, so you'll have the place to yourself most of the time." Then he disappeared into his office, and I didn't see him again for 2 days. The first month was exactly what he'd promised. We were strangers sharing an address. When he was home, he was polite in the way you're polite to someone you're stuck with in an elevator. At family dinners, he'd introduce me as his wife with the same enthusiasm someone might use to mention their accountant. But here's the thing. I didn't let it break me. I refused to. I had entered this with my eyes open, and I wasn't going to spend my energy trying to force something that clearly wasn't there. Instead, I did what I'd always done. I threw myself into my work. I woke up at 5 in the morning and worked on research proposals. I attended pharmaceutical conferences and networked with colleagues. And I started building my own life within his world. I got to know his household staff, Maria, the housekeeper who missed her grandchildren in Colombia, and Joseph, the driver who'd worked for the family for 20 years. I was kind to them, curious about their lives. I didn't treat them like servants. I treated them like human beings. I also started attending charity events on my own. Victoria had put me on guest lists, assuming Daniel would escort me, but he was always too busy, so I went alone. I introduced myself, had genuine conversations, asked questions about people's work. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was just being myself. People started mentioning me to Daniel. Your wife gave an inspiring talk at the medical research gala. I had a fascinating conversation with Naomi about pharmaceutical ethics. She's lovely. You're a lucky man. 2 months into our marriage, something shifted. Daniel came home unexpectedly and found me on the couch with his sister Rebecca. We were laughing so hard we had tears streaming down our faces. Rebecca was showing me old family photo albums with pictures of Daniel as an awkward 13-year-old with braces and too much hair gel. Rebecca turned to her brother. I like her more than I like you, she said, completely serious. Daniel's jaw tightened. He excused himself, but I caught something in his expression. Confusion, maybe even hurt. After that night, Daniel started coming home for dinner more often. He'd ask, "Mind if I join you?" I never minded. I also never changed my behavior. I didn't suddenly try to impress him. We'd eat, and I'd talk about my research if he asked, or we'd eat in comfortable silence if he didn't. I was just present, myself. He started asking questions about my work, my background. I'd answer honestly, never trying to say what I thought he wanted to hear. Sometimes I'd challenge him. He'd make assumptions about pharmaceutical research, and I'd politely explain why he was wrong. No one else in his life did that. Everyone agreed with Daniel Whitmore. I didn't, because I valued truth more than his approval. I watched him become curious about me, the way he'd look at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, how he started asking Joseph where I'd gone when I left the house. He was trying to learn about me through observation, like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. The turning point came at a major charity gala 3 months into our marriage. I wore a deep emerald green dress. At the gala, I wasn't playing the doting wife. I circulated, had conversations, connected with people. I was having a genuinely good time. Then Preston arrived, an old friend from graduate school, now a neurologist. We hadn't seen each other in years. We spent 45 minutes catching up, laughing about old professors and terrible lab experiments. It was easy and comfortable. Suddenly, Daniel was there, his hand on my lower back, his voice smooth, but with an edge I'd never heard. "Preston, isn't it? I'm Daniel Whitmore, Naomi's husband." The emphasis on that last word was unmistakable. As Daniel guided me away, I looked up at him. That was rude. He seemed very friendly. And that's when I understood. Daniel Whitmore, the man who'd treated our marriage like a corporate contract, was jealous. That night, he followed me to my room. "Why did you agree to marry me?" he asked suddenly. "You know why. My research needed funding." "Did you ever want something different?" "Daniel, what are you really asking?" "I'm asking why you've never once asked me for more attention, why you seem perfectly content without me." "Because I am content," I said simply. "I didn't come into this expecting you to complete me. I was already whole. I still am." The look on his face, like I'd just revealed something that shook his entire understanding. He'd expected me to need him, to seek his approval. Instead, I'd built a life where he was just one piece, and not even the most important one. "What if I want to be more than just a piece?" he asked quietly. I could have made it easy for him, but I respected myself too much. Then you'll have to show me that's real, Daniel. Not because you're competitive about Preston or because you're not used to being ignored, but because you actually want to know me. The next morning, I found a card slipped under my door. In his handwriting, "You're right. I'm sorry for wasting 3 months. Can we start again?" Daniel started showing up, actually being present. He'd ask about my day and listen. He'd remember things I mentioned and follow up later. Small gestures that showed he was paying attention. But I didn't immediately warm up. I kept my boundaries, my independence, my own life. And I think that's what he needed to see, that my self-sufficiency wasn't a challenge to overcome, but a fundamental part of who I was. One evening, 4 months into our marriage, Daniel set down his fork at dinner. "I talked to Rebecca today. She said I was an idiot for not seeing what was right in front of me." "Rebecca's perceptive," I said. "Naomi, I went into this marriage thinking it was just a box to check. I thought I could keep you at arm's length and nothing would change." "And?" "And you changed everything without even trying. You didn't chase me or demand attention. You just lived your life with this quiet confidence that made me realize how empty mine was." "I've been going to therapy," he admitted, "trying to figure out why I'm so terrible at letting people in." "Therapy?" "Twice a week, because if I want any chance of this being real, I need to do the work. Not just tell you I've changed, but actually change." I felt something shift in my chest. This wasn't the same man who'd signed our marriage certificate without looking at me. But then, a week later, everything changed. A research position in London, one of the most prestigious pharmaceutical institutes in the world, wanted me to head their pain management research division. 6 months with possibility of extension. It was everything I'd worked toward my entire career. When I told Daniel over breakfast, I tried to be casual. "I got a job offer in London, 6 months initially." He went very still. "And you're considering it?" "I've already accepted it, Daniel." His coffee cup clattered. "What about us?" "Our arrangement was for a year. We're almost at 5 months. We could quietly divorce. You'd keep your shares." "What if I don't want to divorce? What if I don't want you to go?" His voice cracked slightly. "Daniel, you're asking me to give up the opportunity of my career for a marriage that started as a contract?" "No," he said firmly. "I would never ask you to give up your work. I'm asking if there's any part of you that wants to see if this could be something real." I looked at him carefully. "I need to take this job, Daniel. Not because I'm running from you, but because it's mine. I earned it. If you still feel this way when I come back in 6 months, we can talk. Really talk. But I won't stay just because you've decided you want me now that I'm leaving." He nodded. "That's fair." The night before I left, he gave me a small box. Inside was a simple necklace with a tiny compass pendant. "So you always find your way," he said, "whether that's back here or somewhere else entirely. I want you to be happy, Naomi, even if that means I'm not part of the equation." The 6 months in London were transformative, but Daniel and I video called every week, not out of obligation, but because we wanted to. We'd talk about his therapy sessions, my research, books we were reading. We got to know each other without the pressure of physical proximity. He sent me thoughtful messages, pictures of books he thought I'd like, articles about pharmaceutical research, once a video of Rebecca demanding to know when I was coming back. He was showing me consistently that this wasn't a phase. When I returned, Daniel was waiting at the airport. He looked lighter somehow. He didn't rush me or demand an answer. He just said, "Welcome home." We started over. Dating, essentially. He'd take me to dinner and ask about my work like he was learning about me for the first time. We'd go to museums, have long conversations about our childhoods, our fears, our dreams. He introduced me to his friends as his wife with genuine pride. And gradually, I let my walls down because he'd proven through months of consistent effort that this wasn't about possession or control. It was about two people who'd started as strangers and were slowly, carefully building something real. A year after I returned from London, Daniel asked me to marry him again, not because a will required it, but because he wanted to choose me every day. We had a second ceremony, small and intimate, and this time, when he kissed me, there was nothing impersonal about it. I never chased Daniel. I never lost myself trying to win him. I knew my value and lived it every day. That quiet confidence, that refusal to shrink myself, was what captivated a man who thought he couldn't be moved. Real power isn't in making someone want you. It's in being so complete on your own that they realize what life looks like without you. If this story resonated with you, subscribe and hit the bell icon because we share real stories about people who chose themselves first and won. Drop a comment telling me, have you ever had to walk away to be seen? Your story matters. And remember, never beg for a seat at a table where you should be choosing the chairs. See you in the next one.